I remember sliding one check over to her husband, and he's like, "You serious?" I was like, "Yeah." And I pulled out the other check, so the other check over. They were like, "You can't be serious."
Hunger for what?
Hunger for more.
Hello, I'm Ricky Ortiz, and this is the Hunger for More podcast. I have a special guest today. We have Justin Vitek, the owner of Hills and Dales, On the Rocks, and Babcock Social.
Yeah.
Appreciate you coming out, man.
Man, appreciate you. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, man. So you're actually like my first official guest. Like,
Oh, shit.
I had a practice guest last week because my boy Mozzie, you know, he was kind of schooling me a little bit. We had a good conversation. It was a really good episode and stuff like that. But you're my first like invite.
I'm honored. Thank you.
Thanks. Yeah, for sure,
Appreciate
man.
that.
I met you a long time ago, and it was always just in passing and stuff like that. And actually, I used to hang out at Moses Roses a while back, like way back. You know, before Hills and Dales and before all the bars and stuff like that, right?
When I was working there, yeah.
Yeah, when you were working there. I haven't been in the bar business that long. I've been in 3 years. In May, it'll be 3 years, right? I think I opened El Camino May 20th or April 20th, something like that. During my come up in the food truck scene, you know, when I think of like people doing things in the city, obviously like you're on that list. There's not too many business owners here that have like, you know, grown as much as you do. You know what I mean? It's not a knock to anybody else or anything like that. There ain't nothing wrong with only having, you know, one restaurant, one bar or something like that.
Yeah.
But I've seen you come up like bartending, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And then, you know, getting in deals and stuff like that. And man, I mean, it's really inspiring to see. I always like, you know, looked up to, okay, who's really making moves? And I don't know the details of the ins and outs of how you made those moves.
Right.
Tell me your story, man. Tell me a little bit. Like, how did it start for you? Like, how did you get into your first bar?
Well, I mean, first of all, thank you. That's a hell of an intro. I didn't realize that I inspired you. You know. Secondly, I mean, you've done well for yourself in 3 years. It feels like for somebody as successful as you, you'd had to have been in there longer than 3. It seems like. And
Feels like it.
You know,
like fucking
everybody.
20, man.
I was at my anniversary at Hills. Was our 7-year anniversary this past Sunday, and you know, everybody was like, "Oh man, 7 years, that's great." And I was like, yeah, it's like dog years. I think it's like 21 is what it feels like.
7's a long time, man.
Yeah. And so, I mean, especially there was like a couple of bars that I think closed down this past week too, you know, and it's just like, I don't think I've actually ever enjoyed one as much anniversary until this one because it's just kind of like another day to me. It was I never really thought much about it. And then, you know, I don't know, just like that week, it kind of hit me. It was like, dang, like 7 years is kind of a long time in this industry to be open, you know, like. And then even Rocks has been open 9 years, you know. And so being a staple in that industry for that long and being able to, you know, still, you know, a bigger name in the industry right now still has been a blessing. You know, I contribute a lot of my success to my current and former staff. You know, it's, as you know, I mean, staff is what can make or break you. You know?
For sure, man.
You know, starting off with On the Rocks, you know, that was my first one. That was my baby. That one I started 9 years ago. We just had our anniversary in December. That one was special. It took almost a year to build it. My partner and I at the time, he was actually my business mentor, and he actually, he kind of funded the deal at first. And, you know, I put a little bit in, but not a lot. And it was more like sweat equity kind of at first. And, man, it was the toughest year of my life. I mean, I lost a girlfriend. She cheated on me, like, and then I lost my best friend, like, lost a dog, like, all this stuff, and I was like, man, like, I don't know that I want to do this. This sucks, like, you know. And then, you know, I just kept pushing, and one day, one foot in front of the other. That's all I keep telling myself all the time is one foot in front of the other. It's kind of my motto. Eventually, we finally got to the finish line, and it was actually a blessing because, you know how the city closes, like, right, was it like the 23rd or something of December, and then they don't open up for like 2 weeks.
Yeah.
They're closed for like 2 weeks. You can't get no permits, nothing.
You can't get nothing.
We literally, dude, check this out, and I probably shouldn't say this, but it's already done, so they can't do anything to me now. But that day, it was the 23rd of December, and I still remember this. Literally, we had to call every single permit guy in to come check all the stuff, right? And first permit guy comes in. He's the HVAC guy. Comes in. The HVAC guys are in there putting the fucking AC together still. And like literally, it's not even running yet. They're still like drilling stuff together and stuff. It's some huge AC unit. I don't even know how big it is. And they're like putting it in there. He comes in there and he just shakes it and he's just like, green card, whatever, pass.
Yeah, you got lucky.
Holy shit, that's awesome. Then there was I forget this one guy, man. He was a real asshole.
Was it electrical?
No, it wasn't electrical. The dude, it wasn't even us, honestly. He was upset because we didn't have in our common area, there wasn't a railing to go up the stairs. And I'm like, well, that's not even our area. Like, what do you want me to do? And he's like, look, man, you got to have a railing. And I'm like, fuck, all right. Everybody stop what they're doing. Hey, he's like, I'm going to come back. He's like, I'm going to come back at the end of the day, have a railing, or I'm going to red tag it. And I'm like, fuck. So I had everybody stop. I was like, get a goddamn railing up right now. Figure it out. So we put up like a wood railing. Yeah. Somebody got like a wood railing, put it up all the way. Cool, knocked it out. He comes back. He shakes his head. And I was like, you said a railing. He said, it's wood. I was like, you didn't say what kind of fucking railing? You just said a railing. Here, gives you the green tag. I'm like, oh my God. And that was huge because we had just opened, got opened and we had, what was it, Alamo Bowl, New Year's Eve.
Yeah, a lot of stuff, man.
All that stuff right at the end of the year, you know? It was like back to back to back to back. So it was like, man, I think in 7 days, we were rattled off like $35,000-$40,000. And it was amazing. It was like, considering we had been broke, literally, I think I didn't have any money left. I was bartending still at some gigs. Was
rent due?
Yeah. Oh, what? We were paying rent.
You were already paying rent?
What? Yeah. And so literally, I was still bartending gigs like on the weekends. And during the week, I'd be up there like 8 a.m. to 8 p.m., like, helping out with whatever construction things I could. And that's where I learned a lot of my construction knowledge was from my business partner. Then Hills came about because I actually ran into Jody Newman at the nightclub and bar show in Las Vegas, the biggest one in the United States. My director of operations, his name's Clayton. He actually had been telling me for a while, you got to meet the Newmans. They're great people. You got to meet these people. You got to meet them. Got to meet them. And so I'm literally standing in a cab line at Planet Hollywood, getting ready to go to the nightclub and bar show. And this lady taps me, and she hears me say that I'm going to the nightclub and bar show in the taxi cab stand line. And she taps me. She goes, hey, you're going to the nightclub and bar show? I was like, yeah. And she goes, mind if I catch a ride with you? And I was like, oh, yeah, it's fine. So we get in. And this is like, 2-3 years into having rocks. And I'm always a big brand guy. I always love wearing the brand everywhere I go, just represent the brand. And literally, she sees my On the Rocks shirt. And I was wearing like a Columbia On the Rocks shirt or something. And she was like, that wouldn't have to be the On the Rocks in San Antonio, is it? And I was like, what? I'm all the way in Vegas. So I'm like, oh, I'm the shit. Like,
yeah, right.
Somebody in Vegas knows about On the Rocks? Like, this is
it
awesome.
Always feels cool to get something
right?
like that.
And so I didn't know, I didn't know, who she was or anything. She goes, yeah. She goes, I'm Jody Newman. And I was like, oh, small world. That's crazy. I said, congratulations, first of all, on Hills and Dales. I heard y'all bought that. I used to actually go there with my father when I was a kid. My dad, and I grew up in Helotes mostly. And then I moved away. My parents got divorced, and I moved away to a little town in West Texas called Alpine. And then I moved back here. Nonetheless, my dad and I, when I was a kid, he owned a mechanic shop in Helotes. So I used to go with him. And a lot of things, he used to obviously work on cars, but he loved building like hot rods and stuff like that. He was a race car driver, all that kind of good stuff. And so fast cars were always in my blood, and I still have fast cars to this day. I can't drive just like any slow cars, just I don't know. So my dad and I used to go there and shoot pool, hang out. And,
at Hills and Dales.
Yeah, at Hills. Yeah. When the opportunity came, I said, hey, when I was congratulating her, I said, hey, if for whatever reason you'd ever decide to sell that, I would like first crack at it, please. She goes, yeah, I'll let you know. We're trying to get things turned around over there. I said, no, I understand. I said, I just want to just offer that, just it's kind of an emotional purchase for me. I say that it's not like my dad's dead. He's not. He's still here.
It still has emotional attachment to it.
Yeah.
You got memories there,
And so I was like, I just like first crack at it. It's like, all right, yeah. And I actually kind of put this in a post about my 7-year anniversary. And, it was crazy because they wanted kind of a crazy amount is what everybody was telling me. But nonetheless, they were like, hey, this is what we want or whatever. So I'm like, I didn't know whether it was a good deal or bad deal at the time. I was just like, and mind you, we went to Bohannon's for dinner, right? First time I'd ever been to Bohannon's. Best steaks I've ever had, still to this day. And I'm like, hey, I got dinner, guys. Come on, give me that. And they're like, all right. Mind you, her husband, he's a great guy. If you ever met Steve, he's amazing. He goes, sure. And I'm like, yeah, let me get it, man. So I take it. At the time, that was like the biggest bill I'd ever seen.
4 racks, 3 racks?
No, it was like $1,200 or something like that. There's only 3 of us, though, you know what I'm saying? But we didn't drink like wine or anything.
Yeah.
It was just...
Yeah, you had wine in there.
At that time, $1,200, I just barely opened rocks. I was just getting my money back. You know what I mean? I was just like, okay. Okay. And so, it was like $1,200. But at that time, it was like a whole lot of money to me. I was like, Anyways, I'm excited, right? I'm I'm calling my banker. I'm like, hey, I got a badass deal. And he's like, what? So I tell him, and I was like, man, I got this. This is the number they want, whatever. And he was like, yeah, man, I don't know. Have you seen their books? I was like, no, but it's a good deal, man. It's a good deal. To be honest, at the time, I didn't even know what the hell that meant. I mean, I know what the books mean, but like, I didn't fully comprehend everything. They sent me the books, and I'm like, I don't know what this means. Here's the books.
Yeah.
And my banker was like, yeah, man, that's a terrible deal. Like,
so just to clarify, this was to buy the business, right? Like to buy, like to take over the lease, basically. Time or
no, because they own the land and everything. They own the land and business.
So just buy the whole thing, buy the land, buy.
No. Yeah. So then they actually came to me too. And they're like, hey, if you're interested in doing the land, this is the price. And I was like, okay. I'm just focused right now on just getting the business. I'm like, I'll figure that out if that day comes. But right now, I'm just focused on getting the business. Everybody, dude, everybody was like, man, it's a bad deal. Don't do it. I'm like, I disagree. I think it's a great deal. And it was just like, nah. Everybody. The only person that told me yes was my mom. She was the only person that was like, if you believe in it, go after it and do it. Figure it out. I went back to them. I was like, hey, look, I'm not trying to be an asshole. I'm just straight up like, everybody's just telling me it's a bad deal, whatever. I'm not saying it's a bad deal. I just want to be transparent. I'm not saying it's a bad deal. I don't know whether it is a good or bad deal, but I know what I believe that this place can be. And I don't want to change the name. I don't want to change, I'm going to have to do, a little bit of cosmetic stuff to it to fix it up.
Sure.
But, I don't want to, I'm not trying to change this whole look and everything. So they go, you know what? Okay, we'll owner finance it to you. I was like, really? This is like my first owner finance deal I've ever done. Actually, to this day, it's still the only owner finance deal I've ever done. And basically, they were like, we're going to charge you 8% interest. You're only going to pay the interest. And then you're going to, it's a 2-year balloon note.
Yeah.
Even at the time, my business partner was even like not on board. He was like, nah, I don't think it's a good deal.
It's risky because if you don't make it, if you can't get the lending, you can't get the funding, then you're.
And I had to put like 20% down, something like that. Literally, I mean, I'm about to sign the paperwork, whatever. And like, I think the day before or a couple days before, my partner called me. He's like, hey, look, I know I said no, but like if you believe in it this much, I'll jump on with you and we can do it together. We can get things, rolling faster with my money. And I had a little bit of money then, but it was more like he was just like, hey, like you can get a lot more of what you want to get done faster if you let me come in with you. And I was like, all right, fuck it, yeah, jump on. Fast forward, man. We ended up it just struck gold really fast there.
Which one do you feel really kind of catapulted you to being in business and continue?
So
knowing
I'll always say
on the rocks?
I'll always say on the rocks. That was the baby because without on the rocks, there's no hills. Without on the rocks and hills, there's no Babcock.
But Hills and Dales is the one that probably changed your life like crazy.
Yeah,
right?
I mean that one got a lot more attention, obviously, and more sales, a lot more volume wise. I mean that was like, I remember my partner was like asking me, he's like, you really think we can do 100,000 a month in sales here? And I'm like, yeah. And, it's a point we're doing like 400, 500,000 after COVID. It was like, everybody's year 2022 was really like stupid high.
Everybody's, what I mean? Mine too.
And everybody's came back down to reality in 23, I think.
Yeah. It was a good reality check. Yeah.
Some bars, there's some bars that I'm like, okay.
Even us, man. I mean, even still to be in the mid hundreds, 200s and stuff like that, to still hit that in a downtrend is great.
Absolutely.
But that was still a hit. It's like you're living life thinking like, okay, cool, I'm gonna spend this. I'm gonna go open up 2 new spots. I'm gonna do Luther's Cafe and Perfect Tender, and I'm like, it's like I said, it's a humbling experience.
I don't think any of us knew that was gonna happen, right? I mean, like it was crazy. I mean,
when you're up, you feel like you're the smartest dude in the world, and you just know that can't be stopped. What
I
mean?
Man, 22 was a great year, but with Rocks, that kind of, I think, made me, who I am. And then Hills really put me in a brighter, I guess, a brighter light. And then you start all of a sudden having to deal with politicians. You're dealing with this and that, and you're like, why? Listen, I'm not even trying to deal with a politician. I just want to run my business.
I'm in the same boat. You know what I mean? It is pretty crazy to a business like this where I guess the average person, when you look at it, it's a bar.
Yeah.
People go there, they get fucked up. You know what I mean? That's it, right? But when you look at what you've built, the branding, the cult following that you have, all that stuff, I think that people in higher positions, VIPs, see that it is not just like you're shining. You know what I'm saying? Like they're attracted to people that are making moves because not that there's something in it for them, but that you're just a good person to know,
Right.
and maybe you never know. Maybe there's an opportunity that might come up and stuff like that. Same thing with me with politicians is weird that like I'm starting to be approached by or talked to and rub shoulders with people in politics and stuff, right? Council people and people in the county and stuff like that, which is dope. But when you think about that, when you make those relationships, they do open up new doors because you find out about deals before anybody else does.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Like,
no, for sure. I'm not complaining. Like, I mean, all the politicians that kind of I rub shoulders with, they're great people, and I have no complaints whatsoever.
It's just crazy.
I never thought that
when you're a bartender and you're starting in your career, right, and you're going down this path, you probably never even thought that you'd be,
absolutely
chilling in those crowds.
I mean, I remember like the day that I think Councilman Plias he had told me, he's like, "You don't ever want to run for council, do you?" And I was like, "Absolutely not.
I can't.
No, there's no way. Yeah,
okay, cancel.
Yeah, I don't think exactly. I'm like,
week,
you don't want to look back at my stuff anyways, but I'm like, no, absolutely not. And seeing all the stuff they have to deal with and whatnot, I'm like, no, I'm not interested. He's like, yeah, don't do it. I was like, okay, don't worry, you don't have to worry about me. But yeah, I mean, it was like a different light, and it's like, dealing with more like professional athletes. One of the bar owners asked me like, what's so special about Hillsdale? Like all the athletes want to go there. All the Spurs players, all these athletes want to go there. Like, tell the Spurs players I'll comp them bottles and stuff. And he's like, Justin doesn't comp them bottles. They pay for it. They all fuck with him. They pay for their shit full price.
Yeah.
Like nobody gets a discount. Nobody gets free bottles. Like, I'm the only person that gets a free bottle if I want a bottle, but I barely do that. But I'm like, all the guys that come, the players and stuff, they all just genuinely like me.
Hey, good people.
I'll literally try to give them a whole nother table to themselves, and they still wander to my table, and they're like, hey, can we just sit at your table? And I'm like, yeah, I mean, you got like 20 people, dude. Like, I don't have any room for my friends. Like, And they're like, we just want to hang out with you. And I was like, all right. And it's cool, I mean, to be able to be, friends with these guys the way that I am has been awesome. I don't think I ever remember thinking a day that I'd be friends with politicians, professional athletes, anything like that. And now here I am, and I'm like, golly, this is crazy. Like, I've got pro athletes calling me and texting me, and not even just to come to the bar to hang out. I've got connections with these guys that they just like me as a person. And I'm like, blows me away because I'm like, little kid me would be fangirling to the most right now because I was a big basketball fan growing up, and now these guys are all professional.
Hanging out with Spurs players all the
time.
Yeah,
and I'm like, this is crazy.
Oh, yeah, man. Well, I wanted to kind of, on the rocks, right? Like that first leap into business. I guess what obstacles did you run into getting that first deal done? Was like, was there a bunch of partners going in, everybody kind of pitching in money type thing? Was it, you mentioned sweat equity.
Yeah.
You could just elaborate a little bit more, man. I want to know how the come up really happened.
Yeah, absolutely. I only had one business partner. Mm-hmm. I've always only had one business partner. I've never had any other business partners. And he's awesome. He's a mentor of mine growing up. I didn't even know what the hell mentor meant growing up. And then come to find out now that I'm seeing things on social media, I'm like, oh, that guy was my mentor. Like, we never really talked about it, but he was my mentor. His name is Mike McMillan. And he was an older guy that had a bar actually in West Texas. I went to middle school, high school, and a little bit of college out there. And he actually was the first person to ask me, hey, you wanna come work at my bar? It's like a college bar right across the street from the college campus. And I was like, hell yeah. I'm thinking I'm going to be like Tom Cruise in Cocktails, like flipping bottles and shit. It's not what happened at all. That's literally not what happened at all. I was a maintenance guy. I literally was a maintenance guy, like
breaking all the time,
spraying the ceiling with black paint, and the overflow just coming down on top of me, and like any maintenance stuff. And then little by little worked my way up to every single position from, basically like busser, security, barback, DJ. One night the DJ didn't show up, and he's like, hey, you got CDs? And I was like, yeah, I got CDs. Did not know he was going to ask me to be a DJ. And he's like, cool, you're DJing tonight. And I was like, fuck you say? I don't know how to DJ. And he's like, you'll figure it out. And
I had the strip club DJ a couple times. It's not easy.
Yeah. I was like, this is crazy. Like, and so I learned how to DJ. I mean, I'm not going to sit here and say I was the best DJ in the world, like anything like that.
What was your DJ name?
DJ Tech.
Nice.
TEK, like my last name. Yeah, it was sick. I even had a little, like, Bud Light even made me, like, a DJ banner and stuff. It was pretty sick. Wish I still had that. But, yeah, I mean, with him and I, we started with Rocks. And, like I said, he kind of funded most of it.
So, on the Rocks, sweat equity, you put some money in, your partner, mentor,
yeah.
You know what I'm saying, believes in you, obviously. And
right.
it's like, let's do this type thing. But what what made you want to even go that route? Obviously, I think, a lot of people, when you're working in the business and stuff like that, but like,
Yeah.
where did you feel that you had that thought in your mind that like, I'm going to own my own bar one day and I'm going to, do this, right? Like,
It was always kind of in the back of my mind that I would someday. And he actually called me, and he called me up, and he was like, "Hey, what's going on?" Like, he checked on me from time to time, and he called me and he was like, "Hey, like, what's going on? Why, why haven't you opened a bar yet?" I'm like, at the time I was like at Moses Roses actually, and I was like, I said, "Well, the place that I have in mind, so it's pretty pricey. It's downtown." And I had a pretty good following downtown with people, and so I was like,
I knew you from Moses Roses.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, I've seen you down there all the time.
and so I was like, the places that I'm thinking of is just kind of, it's a little pricey. And he was like, "Oh, okay." He's like, "Well, I'll be down next week. Let's go take a look at it, whatever." And I'm like, "All right, I'll set up a meeting, whatever." So I, call the broker, whatever, and set up a meeting. We go look at it, and they gave us a pretty solid deal. And so, like anything, you negotiate. You're like, "Hey, like, we got to negotiate." And so, I don't even think him and I had like really talked about a partnership, but we ended up being
You're just
50-50.
shopping.
Yeah. I mean, then it just, everything kind of happened so fast. It was crazy. We went in like super low, and they, just took our offer. We were like, "Wait, what? Like, can we go lower?" Like, 'cause
Yeah,
we thought it was gonna be like,
You
hey,
probably
we're gonna have some negotiating,
Yeah.
and like, no, we went like super low, and they gave us like everything. Like, they gave us like $100,000 in TI, like I think like 6 months free rent, which took us a year still to build it though.
Tell me about it.
And so, and then our rent was like crazy cheap. Like,
I got 6 months free rent to do Camino. It took 2 years. Yeah.
Oh,
They
wow.
came back. They took care of me. They gave me another 9 months of free rent, but I paid rent for about 7 months, give or take, on Camino before we
Wow.
opened the door. Yeah, I got my ass handed to me on that.
Oh,
one.
shit.
That was brutal, man. I went in not knowing much. You know what I'm saying? Like knowing
Yeah.
the basics of lease. I paid a consultant actually to help me because I was like, "Hey, I don't want to go realtor. I don't want to pay this crazy." Mess up the deal or something like that. I
Yeah.
want to know more about the real estate stuff myself. So I paid a consultant, a couple grand, like, "Hey man, help me negotiate this thing." He didn't know shit. He was just fucking. He sold me on some book that he wrote. I'm like, this dude don't know what he's talking about. But anyway, going there, it was a good negotiation. I think it was a solid deal. You know what I mean? It's just
Yeah.
like I didn't do my due diligence enough to know about development. Taking a raw piece of land in my mind, I'm like, okay, I'm gonna put food trucks on this thing. I just need to run electric and power.
Right.
And I know that, basic stuff like MEP and civil, the engineers that go behind that, right?
Right.
But I didn't know about Riverwalk Authority and Historic District
Yeah.
and all that stuff. So had it not been on the Riverwalk, I've been open in 6 months, a year.
Yeah.
Right? But because of the Riverwalk, it added a whole year to that process
Wow.
because I had to get approval from council, to even do that concept there.
Oh,
We had to rezone. We had to, dude, I got screwed. I screwed myself because I didn't know shit.
Yeah.
Right. So El Camino taught me a lot about like the city planning stuff, development,
Right.
the whole nine, and then lease negotiation. Like,
Exactly.
man, like make sure you get those terms right.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? With free rent, TI,
Yeah.
and all that stuff. Because that shit'll get you if you don't get it right.
No, for sure. And so for us, we got a hell of a deal. It is like there was no negotiating on there, and they were like, "Okay." I was like,
That's good, man.
"Damn,
That's
can
a
we go
great
lower?"
spot. That's a good, it's
No,
a great spot.
I'm there till like 2030, I think.
That's great.
Like that was the initial term of like the whole lease, and then the landlord actually, I think he wants to extend it. We're supposed to meet soon. He wants to even extend it past that. So.
Dude, do it, man. You know
No,
what I'm saying?
absolutely.
The growth in
It's a
San
great deal.
Antonio-
I have a solid deal there that I don't ever plan on getting rid of that.
Don't. Yeah.
It's in the heart of San Antonio, literally.
For sure, man. Look at all the development and stuff like that. You know what I'm saying? Like, you just can't beat it,
No, for sure.
And then, Hills and Dales, I feel like you created the obviously you got UTSA right across the street. You got a lot of stuff in the area, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But you made it a destination that people, like, want to go, be there, right?
Yeah.
I feel like developers pay attention to that type of stuff. You know what I'm saying? Be like, well, let's put an apartment complex, right
Right.
up the way. You know what I'm saying? Let's do more
Right.
around this area. You know what I mean? So
No,
you're in great
absolutely.
spots, man. But you took Hills and Dales, which I think back then, even 7 years ago, wasn't what it is today as far as
No.
location.
Nah, dude, that was crazy. To kind of continue from that story earlier, I ended up paying the bubble note in 1 year. I paid it off.
I remember seeing you post about that.
And
That's
then
gotta feel good.
And then I also gave them a check for the property the same day. So I had 2 checks for them that day. I took them to lunch, and at the Minger Hotel actually. And I remember sliding one check over to her husband, and he was like, "You serious?" I was like, "Yeah." And I pulled out the other check, so the other check over. They were like, "You can't be serious."
I gotta ask though, was that like, did you get lending on the property? You COD?
No, yeah. I got lending.
Okay, great, man.
But to kind of retract, my banker, he was like, "Man, if you can make this thing work, I'll give you a loan for whatever the fuck you want." And so he started seeing the numbers rolling in, and he was like, "What in the hell is going on over there?"
No brainer.
You know, because I think they were only doing like $20,000-$30,000 a month when I first bought it, and we started, gaining traction fast. I mean, it gained traction fast. I bought it in February, and I think by June we had done our first Sunday Fun Day, is when we started Sunday Fun Day, and our first Sunday Fun Day was like we did like 7,500, and I was like at the time there was I think what was it, Box 903 or whatever was like the spot to be on Sundays.
Yeah.
And and I was like, dude, like I don't even think they're doing that on Sundays, and that was my first one, and I was like, man, this is crazy. And then fast forward, I mean, you 6 months, a year later, then you're like 7,500. We're doing like 20 grand, then 30, then 40, then 50, and then
on
like
a Sunday.
Yeah, just on Sunday.
That's wild.
Bro, it was insane. Like, because it would just be busy from the time we opened till we closed, and it was just crazy. I mean, to be honest with you, this is 2017, and obviously, I think we can all agree that social media has been on a bigger platform now more than it was in 17. But the biggest thing that led that was after our very first Sunday Fun Day. I thought it was amazing. I was like, man, 7,500, that's freaking awesome. And the very next day, you get all these like negative reviews from all these older people that used to go to the bar, that it's not the same bar, this, that, and the other. And I was like,
the most ridiculous shit,
dude,
though, too.
I was on such a high that I was like, bro, fuck yeah, this is awesome. Like, because I wasn't nervous. It was like, I was so confident that I was going to make that thing be what it is today. I could envision that. And I wasn't nervous. I knew it was going to make it. And that's why I was like, I didn't care what number the Newmans threw at me. I mean, they could have said a higher, and they could have said twice as much. I'd be like, all right, cool, I got it. Like, I'll figure it out.
You just knew what it was going to be.
I could envision what it is today. What it is today is exactly what I envisioned. And, for me, the next day I woke up on a Monday, and I was still on that high, like, man, it's fucking awesome, we killed it. And there's all these people just talking shit, like, on Facebook and all this stuff. So I just went on there, and I learned early on not to respond to every heckler, right, that talks shit on social media, a little,
it's not gonna get you nowhere.
Keyboard warrior. Yeah.
If anything, you're just giving them the validation.
And
that
so
they
usually I didn't respond to those things. And my partner would always tell me that at the time. He's like, why even respond? Don't even worry about it. And I was like, all right, whatever. So I learned that early on. Well, this particular day, I was on such a high. It was such a great, night the night before. And then next thing you know, you wake up and you're like feeling great. And, you get all this negative reviews and stuff. And I just went into like a whole rant, It was like, if you don't like it, there's other places to go. But I mean, it was a whole like paragraph, right? And I mean, I guess like some news people picked it up. At the time, next thing I know, I got like news people calling me and shit. And I was like, what are y'all calling for? They're like, yeah, you like wrote this thing, whatever, right? And I was like, yeah. And so like, we want to do a piece on it. And I was like, all right. So like my essay, like KSAC, Ins5. And I was like, I didn't think it was like a big enough story for like a news to pick up, but they did. And that's when everybody started getting like, that's when it went from 75 to like 20. Because it was like everybody.
You got the spotlight, yeah.
Yeah, because they were like, well, what the hell's going on over there? It was because at that time, people really were used to the old Hills and Dales, right? It was the old biker bar Hills and Dales. Yeah. So they're like, what's going on over there that's changed? I got to see this now. The curiosity's getting the best of them. And so they come and, they see, the big garage doors all open, the natural lighting, the giant beer pong, all the stuff we were doing, DJs. But, you got to understand my DJs, I do what's called open format. So you had to play, everything from James Brown to Chris Brown to Zach Brown. So you're playing country, hip hop, 80s, 90s, Latin, everything. And that's our format. And so they would come out, and it was like older people during the day. We'd play, the Maroon 5s, we'd play the Bee Gees, we'd play all that stuff,
Yeah.
And that was awesome. That was big for us. But I was always taught, like my mom, she had always taught me, she's like, you just gotta face it. You know, it's just whether it's good or bad, you just gotta figure it out and face it. And there's not, you're probably not gonna face it right the first time, but you'll figure it out. You know, it's like, you know, you with like the lease in at Besame, you know, it's
Just
like
figure it out.
I guarantee you ain't gonna do that shit again. I mean,
Nah.
I'm not saying you won't open another one again, but
No,
I promise
I
you,
will
you
never-
won't make the same mistake again.
Well, not.
Right? You know what I
I
mean? Because
read
you already know,
everything.
like, shit, you're a smart guy. You know that. You know,
I've
I'm not gonna-
researched how to negotiate leases. I've
Yeah.
read leases thoroughly. Like I really
Right.
don't even need a commercial realtor to understand
Yeah,
a lease.
exactly.
You know what I'm saying? Like I use one anyway just to make sure that I got a second set of eyes on it.
Exactly.
You know what I mean? But
Exactly.
yeah, man. But no, that's you know, it's being adaptive. You know what I'm saying? Like you got to be able to roll
You know,
with it. You know, whatever.
I didn't know how to become when I became a father. I didn't know how to be a father, but I learned and
Figure it
just
out.
figured out. You know,
Yeah,
it's one
change
one
the
foot in
diaper.
front of the
Yeah.
other. You know,
Yeah.
it's like
How do you change this diaper?
Yeah,
what
you know, I don't know. I figured it out. You know, it's kind of came back down to normalcy, but I'm not complaining by all means because
No,
we
for
still
sure.
do well on Sundays. But you know, to continuously do it for that many years in a row, it's coming up on 7 years anniversary for
I was
Sunday
happy
Fun
with
Day.
I was happy with the 30-40K Saturday, like just being like, oh shit, like
You know?
we're the shit.
Yeah.
Dude, a 50K Sunday, that's
Bro,
insane.
and like not even just like it wasn't just like a like special weekend, like a 3-day holiday weekend. No,
Consistent.
consistently doing like 45, 50, 52, like around 50 every Sunday. It was crazy.
So, you know, now I think, you know, for San Antonio and the bar service industry, you know, you're definitely on the you know, the top of the list as far as like, you know, people making moves and doing their thing. But how has that affected you as far as like that drive that you had when you were first done on the rocks? You know what I'm saying? Like where you at? Do you want to continue this? I mean, you know what I'm saying? Are you getting hungry for other things in life? Like where you at?
Well, I'm not hungry for is the lawsuits because a lot of
Yeah.
those keep rolling in. You know, I think at first I was kind of more hungry. I mean, I joke about it, but it's true. It's like, you know, at first you're like, man, this is great. I love this business. I love, you know, which I do love the business because I love, you know, not going to work every day and not knowing who you're going to meet. I'm not a paper pusher and you basically sign the same paperwork,
9 to
looking over
5, all that
paperwork.
stuff, yeah.
I could never do that. I would never be able to do that. And to be able to meet new people every day, I love that. I'm a people person. I want to continue to do other different things like bars and restaurant bars, kind of what we talked about before. But then there's also that side of me that's like, man, I'm so tired of getting sued. Like it's like Fred's Fish Fry sued me.
What?
You know, yeah, Fred's Fish Fry
For
sued
the
me.
Jersey thing?
No, for
Who- I
somebody
thought-
ran into one of the Fred's Fish Fry like 16 or not 64 Bandera and 410 or something. I don't even know there's a Fish Fry there. Like they're suing me. Like, but
Fred's-
I mean to be fair, they're trying to sue every person that's even around. I don't know, whatever.
Yeah, dude,
But
the liquor liability
I'm like-
and stuff is ridiculous.
you gotta be kidding me. Like,
Yeah.
you know, so there's that want to, yes, I still have a few concepts that I'd still like to accomplish. But I'm also, you know, leaning towards kind of doing more commercial real estate stuff and development and stuff like that. And so that's more kind of the industry I'm looking forward to getting into and learning more about is more the commercial real estate side, you know, development side. So
Yeah, man, build another Hills and Dales and then rent it out to somebody else.
that's what my banker was telling me. My banker actually, he's from Frost and he's awesome. He was telling me, he was like, man, the very first day I signed the paperwork, because I bought out, oh, sorry, I skipped that part. I bought out my partner like a
Okay.
year and a half ago, something like that. And I remember when we signed the paperwork for that, he was like, man, I'm so proud of you and everything you've accomplished. You're doing great. If I had to give you any advice, my advice would be get into commercial development. And I was like, what do you mean? He was like, all the guys that I'm doing loans for right now are all commercial development guys, and every single one of them is a millionaire. He's like, you got to build a strip center. It doesn't matter how big, how small. He said you could start small and increase. And he goes, you could even eventually build one and base your bar out of it and then give yourself a solid deal for rent. That way you can sell it after you lease out to everybody else. You sell the strip center, you still have your bar. You're there for however
you
long.
write your own lease.
Write your own
at
lease.
a discount.
Yeah,
know
he's
what I'm
like,
saying?
you make your bar the hub, like
Yeah.
the main hub, however you want to design it. And so he was telling me, he's like, you need to get really in the commercial development side of it. And so that stuck with me as soon as he said that, like a year and a half ago. It's kind of where I've been is, you know, trying to look at different properties of where I can develop. It's not so much for me to open another bar because
No, man, but it's to expand, you know, your portfolio and do different things. You know what I
Yeah.
mean, I'm in the same boat as far as where okay, it's only been 3 years. You got a few years on me, right, with being in this business and stuff.
Yeah.
But I'm going on bar number 4, and for me, I'm in the same thing. Like I don't deal with many lawsuits. You know what I'm saying? But it is a lot, man. Like it's just so much that goes into running a bar with staff and all this other stuff. And I just feel like there's a lot of smarter ways to make money. Like, but you need that foundation. You know what I mean? Like the retail side of things. Hitting those types of numbers.
Yeah.
That gives you that foundation to be able to be like, okay, I'm gonna take this. I'm gonna go do this, right? But hitting bar number 4, it's like I already want to give up. You know what I'm saying? Like I already want to be like, why am I doing this? Like for what? I'm good with 1 or 2. You know what I'm saying? Camino and Besame like takes care of me. You know what I'm saying? Like why did I need to go and do 3 and 4? You know what I mean? Like so it was a good reality check. I think things are gonna go great. And I think my talent, and I think it's the thing that we share, kind of like you said, branding. You really like, rocking your brands and stuff like that. Right. I need to wear mine more, but like we make good brands and people follow them. You know what I mean? You know what I mean? Like you get mentioned all the time in all sorts of stuff. You know what I'm saying?
No, for sure.
So I think creating the brand, creating the culture around it is definitely something that we are really good at. But yeah, man, I'm just getting a little tapped out on the bar thing, right? Like, why am I doing so much of it? Like, let's do something else.
Yeah,
commercial real estate has been in my mind.
Yeah,
you know what I'm saying? Been talking to a couple friends that are in the space. Like I even messaged one of them, a broker. I'm like, yo, man, like, what I got to do to be under you? And he's like, yo, I'll sign you up right now.
Right.
Like I have
network of people. Yeah,
I have a built-in network of people. We got food trucks. People that want to eventually go brick and mortar. I got them.
Yeah, actually, one of the other things I was wanting to get into this year was is insurance. I want to start my own insurance brokerage, and I have a friend of mine. I mean, a friend of mine and I talked about it a while back, and he was like, I mean, the question is, why aren't you in this? Because your network of people that you know is insane. And so I just kind of started throwing it out there to some guys. I have some friends that own some trucking companies, oil field companies, stuff
just
like that.
Just commercial, general liability and stuff like that?
No, I mean commercial, home, everything.
Everything, the whole nine.
And so I threw it out there but the commercial is a big one, right?
Yeah.
And so I threw it out there to some buddies of mine that own tow trucks and trucking companies and stuff like that. And I was like, hey, if I ever started an insurance company and I could at least match or beat the quote you have, would you come on board with me? And they're like, yeah, why wouldn't I? Like, I'd rather give my money to somebody I know versus somebody I don't even know. You're my boy. And
send your bar owner friends a quote for $150,000 in liquor liability. Those are insane numbers,
bro.
Oh man, anyway.
Don't get me started on that. That's
yeah, I know. We don't got to go too deep into that. They're probably watching, but
no. I don't do bottle service.
You don't do it. Yeah, we're dealing with similar stuff. It's funny. A lot of the stuff that you mentioned is like I'm going through it, right? Like you've been through it. I'm currently going through a lot of it. One of them is opening up Aikachula, which is on San Antonio's LBGT strip, right on the gay strip.
Yeah.
And I know it was like a left field for when I told people I was doing it, they're like, what? Because it's like, I got El Camino, I got Besame. I'm like, oh, now I'm gonna do Aikachula.
But it makes sense.
Yeah,
I mean, for you, and I feel like you have like a niche, like you have a very like Ricky Ortiz niche type of bar, and you know what I mean? El Camino, Besame,
Aikachula,
they all kind of, the lights and, the outdoor venues.
Which is why I felt like it was a perfect fit for the gay strip because, there wasn't anything colorful on the street previous to that. You know what I'm saying? Like you got Knockout, Sparky's, Pegasus, Heat, and a handful of other stuff in the area. But when you really think about it, like what is gay in the area? What is actually looks like it belongs on this street, right? It's all, if you took those bars, they can put them in any other part of town, Absolutely. And they'd fit right in.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? So I was like, when I saw Luther's available, it's like the prime piece of real estate on the street. It's got like 12 garage doors, those giant, expensive ass garage doors. I'm like, dude wanted the previous owner wanted a big chunk of change for all the equipment and stuff like that. I let it, I was like, nah, man, I'm good. I'll walk away type thing or whatever. And ended up getting pennies on the dollar. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? I'm like, all right.
You went back to him, or you went through the landlord?
I went through the landlord because they were like, I'll just speak on it. But the guy wanted $100K for all the equipment. Yeah. You know what I mean? And I looked at it. I'm like, okay, but you also got to pay the rent, and there's all these repairs. And I'm like, okay, what am I really buying here? You know what I'm saying? Yeah. It's like, all right. I'm like, you know what? We walked away. 2 months go by, 3 months go by. Landlord calls, and it's like, hey, we really want you. Like, you're the only. You're the best qualified tenant that has come our way. Like, we want to work with you. We're willing to make it more worth your while. I'm like, all right, cool. I'll go check out the space or whatever. But to get the equipment, the previous owner still had possession of that. Right?
Yeah.
So they're like, well, he's already out anyway. Like we're doing him a favor by letting him use it as
you're not gonna
storage,
sue
basically,
him.
to try and keep, to get something out of it.
Right.
I'm like, all right, cool. So I went in there. He took a few things out or whatever, but I think the core of the pieces that I needed were still, I think, valued well over 60, 70K.
Yeah.
I'm like, look, man, I'm gonna give you 20. And then he said no. I was like, no, back and forth. He's like, oh, but this. I'm like, no, I got 20. You know what I mean? So I got basically an entire commercial kitchen with everything almost plug and play.
Oh, wow.
For 20 G's, and then I took over the lease, got free rent.
Yeah.
Negotiated the free rent, and then we had dealt with some legal issues with liquor variances and things like that, and get into zoning problems. But do your due diligence because the
Right.
zoning things. There's always little hidden things that you got to look out for.
Yeah.
Like like I told you, it was zoned IDZ, which allows for basically any sort of major tower commercial use, but it had a sub zoning of C2 and A, which means you can do a restaurant, but you can't sell alcohol. So I had to get a special variance to be allowed to sell alcohol, and then you got to go to city council. The mayor's got to say yes. I had to pay a lobbyist. What's his name? Patrick. I forgot his last name. Sorry, but I had to pay a lobbyist to help me get that variance. Right, a couple $1,000s, nothing crazy. But we got the variance. Pushed this back 5 months, and now rent's due. So when you told your story about like opening up, at the, you're dealing with the end of year. It was literally like I think 3 days before the city closed down, and I'm trying to get my C of O, and dude, we got failed for a fucking plug, like for because the GFCI plug was behind a 3-compartment sink and is not accessible. So if the breaker trips, you have to move the sink and do that. The electrical inspector's like, no, you have to cap it. We capped it. He came back, found something else wrong. I'm like, bro, this is the last day. This was the day before the city closed. He's like, well, if I fail you, then you're gonna have to pay for after hours, holiday, time, which is like triple the amount of the permit. I was like, well, at this point, I don't care. I'll pay it. Right. Anyway, we ended up getting a temporary C of O, and
really?
we're able to operate. But rent was due, man, and 12 G's in Christmas time is a lot. You know what I'm saying? So anyway. But similar type of headaches with dealing with the city and stuff like that. But like you said, you learn, try not to make those mistakes again. But sometimes shit happens, man.
For sure.
I really appreciate you coming out, man. I think it was dope to hear some of the backstory, and I appreciate you just being a part of it, man.
No, man, I'm honored. Thank you for having me as your first guest, man. That's
man.
awesome.
We'll do it again down the road when I get my feet wet and I feel a little more. And I'm a better host. You know what I'm saying?
Nah, you're good,
One
man.
thing that we talked about is maybe checking out, Hills and Dales and like an on-site, like you just like live, at the spot. You know what I mean? Appreciate you coming out.
Nah, thank you, bro.
I'm Ricky Ortiz. You're watching The Hunger for More. Subscribe to the YouTube channel. Follow us on all social media platforms. And stay tuned for the next episode. Appreciate you, man.
Thank you, babe.
Chill.